Stephen A., do you think that Rodgers is being sincere in his return?
Well, hell yeah, he is. I mean, he's basically made it. First of all, Jermichael Finley lucky that Aaron Rodgers didn't talk about him the way he talked about Gutekunst and the Packers organization. Then we might be having a different discussion. We all know that Jermichael Finley could play. He was no scrub, third-round pick out of Texas, was drafted in 2008, if I remember correctly. I would remind him, however, 3 of the last 4 years he played in the NFL, 70% of the passes thrown to him were completed. Aaron Rodgers threw to him, and 70% of the time he caught those passes. Now, he deserves a lot of credit for catching those passes, but a quarterback got it to him. That would be Aaron Rodgers. And then when you talk about the body language, or you talk about how Aaron Rodgers waited until the 11th hour, can we put things in its proper perspective, please? Aaron Rodgers, it was the offseason. Things percolated in the offseason, got his back up a little bit. Obviously, he isn't too fond about a couple of people in the organization. I don't think it's hard to imagine why, which we've all discussed ad nauseum. And as a result, once he was finally mandated to return, because he didn't show up to OTAs, he didn't show up to mandatory, mini camps and stuff like that. He didn't show up until he absolutely had to. And it was after he had wanted a trade, and they said, no, we ain't moving you. So he had to come back to work. And when he came back to work and you asked him a question, he told you why. So what if he had a little note down, below him where he was remembering each player that he wanted to bring up? Aaron Rodgers hadn't spoken in months. It was the offseason. It was the first time he was going to be seen by the media, and everybody and their grandmother knew what was going to be asked of him. How's it is to be back? Why were you gone? What is it that you're feeling? And he just went right with it, and I thought was as real and authentic and honest as you can be about where he stood. He let you know, I'm here because I have to be. I'm not here because I want to be. I want to play. I love my teammates, but I don't like playing for this damn organization anymore. That's what he told you. What's the problem?
First of all, Jermichael Finley has to preface it by saying I'm not hating the way Greg Jennings might. Because
I lost you, Max. Did you drop your microphone? Because I could barely hear you.
Yep, the mic dropped. Thanks
there you
for
go.
the catch.
Okay, see? I knew this.
Got you back.
Jermichael Finley, like Greg Jennings, when he talks, has to preface it, I'm not hating. Because people assume if you say negative things about Aaron Rodgers, you're a former teammate, you're hating. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But what we do know is Jermichael Finley has said negative things publicly about Aaron Rodgers in the past. Aaron Rodgers has not returned fire. He said positive things about Jermichael Finley, but that just may be the way Jermichael Finley feels. If you're on a team and you're dealing with 100 different people, not everyone is going to like everyone, even the most popular, likable people. You're going to rub some people the wrong way, whatever that is, right? Okay, that's fine. To suggest, though, that Rodgers is not being sincere somehow seems off to me. That does not sound like the right note to me. Like, Rodgers sounds to me like he's hitting the right note. Stephen A., I have given Tom Brady credit for leadership and decision-making. The reason he's the GOAT is he's been the greatest leader and the quickest and best decision maker. He makes the most good decisions and the fewest bad ones, it seems to me. That's the secret to his success, because he doesn't have the talent Rodgers has, right? And I will give Brady credit for leading in this way again. He blazed a trail that showed Aaron Rodgers the way. Aaron Rodgers, to me, it's pretty clear, saw what Brady did. And by the way, Brady's more himself now in Tampa, right? And it's fun. It's nice to see. And he sounds like he's not holding back. He's just doing his own thing. Rodgers is now, Stephen A., to me, talking a bit like the handcuffs are a bit off. Not like he has to be fake. What'd he say about Gutekunst? He said, look, we have a relationship. It's not where it needs to be. And because Gutekunst, it's like when you call someone, if you're really sincere with them and you're back and forth, good communication, you don't talk for a couple months. It's like rolling out of bed. You can talk again. But when it's forced, if I'm just on his to-do list, and I'm paraphrasing here, then it's forced. It's not the same thing. That's not being insincere. He's laying the blue. I think it's very unlikely he stays in Green Bay.
Very mature, actually.
Yes, he's giving them the blueprint. He's saying, look, this is the way I'd like to be dealt with. Now, if the organization, if Gutekunst, for example, is just the type of dude who's like, that's just not me, well, not everyone is for everyone. Then they can't be together. That's okay. But to suggest that Rodgers is somehow being insincere, I'm not questioning Jermichael Finley's sincerity. I'm saying that just feels wrong to me based on how it feels. And everyone knows, how does it feel when you listen to a guy, right? Stephen and I talk about Cam Newton sometimes, early in his career especially, or Alex Rodriguez early. There are some athletes where they feel so uncomfortable in their own skin, it seems, when they're talking. You get uncomfortable watching them. That's not what I get from Aaron Rodgers right now. I get a cat who is much more comfortable in his own skin, just telling you the truth. So I'm not questioning Finley's motives. I just don't think he's right about this.
I'm with you.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.